Hello everybody, welcome back to Snowy's Trips. This is the final episode of the Nc500, so it's going to be a combination of days 10 and 11. This particular episode takes us from Arrachar back down to Preston, and then on the final day leaving Preston for Southampton, parting company with Sean and Dan on the way, leaving me to travel along the M42 and then down the M40 towards Southampton. On that particular day, the weather is not good at all, and one little moment of excitement on the M40 when one of our French compatriots decides to try and turf me off the bike and gives me a little nudge on the way past, as he didn't like me filtering through the traffic. Other than that, pretty uneventful trip back home, and bit of a downer really after the beautiful scenery up and around Scotland. Anyway, I really hope you enjoy it, so let's get into it. Okay, so off we go. We're leaving the Arrachar Hotel. The weather at this stage isn't too bad. The Arrachar Hotel looks out over the top of Lake Long, which you'll see once we pull onto the road. You'll see it in the background, and it was one of the still pictures that I put up. So we'll travel down that road for a little way, and I've left the rear facing camera going, as the weather, as I say, wasn't too bad, but the road would be a bit wet, so I thought we'd get much better pictures, better scenery of what we were leaving behind rather than what we were heading for, because from here down to Preston, obviously we say goodbye to the nice scenery, we get back to some semblance of normality, unfortunately. A little bit further we'll be riding alongside Loch Lomond, but I'll put a little comment up as we get there. If you like what you're seeing, please give me a thumbs up or a like, and subscribe to the channel so that you can go back and see other things that you may not have already seen in the past. Okay, so now we pick up Loch Lomond on the left hand side, and we travel along this road for quite some considerable time, and this route will take us back past Firkin Point, which is a place that we stopped and took a little break on the way up at the start of our trip. Lovely place, beautiful scenery. I know I've said it on so many of these videos, but the scenery is stunning and the camera just doesn't really do it justice, but I certainly hope you're enjoying what you can see. But as I say, the loch will be on our left hand side for quite some time, so enjoy the view. Now I know I've mentioned this before, and this is not a shameful plug because I'm not actually earning any money, but that little gadget on my finger is one of the cheapest and most useful things I've ever bought since I've been on a motorbike. It's just like a windscreen wiper for your visor. Just swipe it across your visor when it gets wet. Absolutely brilliant. You should get one if you do a lot of winter riding. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? Don't you wish you were there? Well, you could be. Just book it up and go. So if you're clocking the signs, you will have spotted we've still about 21 miles to go to Glasgow, and already you can see the build-up of traffic on the roads, and obviously we've still got a fair old way to go past Glasgow. Here we are on the approach to the Erskine Bridge, and we've certainly put a few miles on the clock since we came over the bridge in the opposite direction. What a fantastic time it's been. In my younger days I've actually run over this bridge and back when I used to be into my running, half marathons 3 or 4 times a year. Great experience running over here and back with my colleague at the time, a chap called James Ferguson, who tripped over on the way, and we didn't know it at the time, but he chipped a bone off of his knee, which then went inside and started chewing up his cartilage. And a week or so after it had happened, he had to go in and have keyhole surgery to have it removed. Poor bloke had his leg up for about 6 weeks after that. Yeah, I remember it well. Anyway, it's much easier riding over on a bike than it is running it, that's for sure. scenery just keeps on coming. I know we're actually on a motorway at the time, but left and right, lovely, lovely scenery. And at the risk of saying the same thing over and over again in these videos that we've done, I just can't get over the colours. I know it's autumn time and you expect that, but the range is just incredible. It's just a gift that keeps on giving, to be fair. Just passing the sprawling metropolis of Glasgow, whizzing through, not stopping, heading for Preston. There's a nice curry waiting for us when we get to Preston before we go to the hotel. Funnily enough, it's a curry house that we stopped at on the way up, and it was so nice we decided to make a return trip. But instead of going to the hotel and then get a taxi back to the Indian, we've decided to arrive there in our gear, have a nice meal, then ride back to the hotel before tucking in for a night's sleep before the 300-mile trip back tomorrow. Here's young Dan, being very cool on his V-Strom. Obviously very comfortable on his ride. I dare say he'll get some grief from his girlfriend and his mum when she sees that little clip. Well done, mate. Okay, here's the changeover. As there was nothing much really going on between Glasgow and Preston, I've decided to edit the rest out. So now we're actually on day 14, which is the 300-mile leg from Preston down to Southampton. Pretty much taking in the M6, M42, M40, A34, M3 for me. But I part company with Dan and Sean before I branch off onto the M42, and they continue their journey down to Cornwall on the M6 all the way down to probably as far as Exeter, and then swinging off from there. Here we go then, riding solo now with Sean and Dan. Have parted some time ago, and it really feels quite strange to be riding on my own again after spending the last 10 or 11 days in their company. It's not an issue, but it's just one of those things. It's around about here that the traffic starts to build up quite heavily. I think we were being held back on a rolling road with some wide vehicles being moved, and it's not far from here when Mr. Frenchie decides he doesn't like me filtering through the traffic and tries to close the gap. His front end actually catches my rear pannier as I go past, but not enough to knock me off, and not enough to cause a problem at all. But yeah, you do get them. Please folks, no comments about filtering and not enough gap. These cameras make the available space look much tighter than it actually is, and bearing in mind that that camera view that I used was down on the GoPro, which was mounted right down on my engine bars, so it makes things look so much closer than they actually are. So as I say, please no comments about filtering, thank you very much. at this point, I'd like to point out that we took 3 bikes, 2 Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650s and Dan's V-Strom, and none of the bikes gave us any problems whatsoever. We obviously did minor adjustments on chains, bit of engine oil in all of them, but other than that, neither bike missed a beat. They've been absolutely brilliant. The Royal Enfield, comfortable as possible. I'm so pleased I didn't try and do it on my Royal Enfield Continental GT 650. I don't think my body would have liked to have been in that position for that length of time. So 2,000 miles travelled. I think for Sean and Dan it was more like 2,100 plus, and as I say, the bikes never skipped a beat. I'd also like to give a big bit of praise to BagTech luggage. I bought these BagTech panniers and top bag. I think it gave me about 70 litres of capacity altogether. They were brilliant. I don't think I got a drop of water into any of them in the time that we were away. And they've got some fantastic reflective bits on them. I know that seems a daft thing to comment on, but it's almost like somebody shining a torch back at you at night when you drive up behind one of these BagTech things. Anyway, as I say, great stuff. Last fuel stop of the trip, not far to get to home now. good old A34 must be one of the most boring roads in this country. I hate it with a vengeance. However, if you want to travel north from Southampton, you ain't really got a great deal of choice other than the M3, M25 and M1. So suck it up, buttercup. Well, there you are. That's the end of our trip. We've actually had a blast. It's been an amazing journey. I've brought the clips to an end a little bit early, as once I got to the end of the A34 with all this traffic, it was literally that way, nose to tail, all the way down onto the M3 and then down into Southampton. So there really wasn't much point in videoing or showing you the rest of that trip. As I say, it's been incredible. I would really like to thank Sean Reed for all the planning and effort that he put into it. Both Sean and Dan were brilliant company for the trip. I'm sure they got as much out of it as I did. And yeah, it was fantastic. If you really have any intention of doing it, I would say just get on your bike, plan it up and go, because it was such an amazing place. This particular video is a bit of a downer really, because literally when you come away from scenery like you've just experienced for over a week, but that's not going to spoil the trip. It was fantastic, it was amazing, and there will be other trips that I'm going to post up, so keep an eye out in the future for other things coming up. We did the hills and the dales a little bit earlier this year in 2025, so I'm going to try and put something together for that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, because we certainly did. Thanks for watching. Come back soon. Bye bye.